Hello everyone, it's Elaine. Thank you for joining me today on my YouTube channel. I'm using my little reindeer agenda stamps again today, and to start off with I'm using 3 distress inks. Spun sugar I'm starting off with first, then Victorian velvet and a little bit of aged mahogany. But firstly I'm taking just a sort of A2 size piece of card. Well, it's just slightly bigger than A2 sized, and it's just some heavyweight white cardstock, and I'm applying some spun sugar just really lightly. My ink pad is fairly dry, so it doesn't really go too splotchy, but it's just a really light layer of that onto that piece of cardstock, and then I leave that aside to dry. And now I take some Strathmore Bristol smooth cardstock into my Misti. And here are my little reindeer agenda stamps. I've treated my paper with my Antistatic powder tool, and I'm using some Versafine Onyx black ink to stamp out all of those little reindeers, and I do that twice, although I don't show it twice. And I apply some clear embossing powder all over the top and heat set that with my heat tool and wait till they're nice and melted and glossy. And by that time my spun sugar paper is all dry, and I run that through my Big Shot with my Hillscene cover die from Mother Elephant. And once I do that, I then just mask off with some post-it tape that outside border, because I don't want to get any ink onto the area just yet. And then I've just cut a piece of scrap paper, and I'm just easing that down the middle of those slots. It does take a little bit of manipulation, but if you're gentle and take things slow and wiggle it, it gradually feeds through. And now this is where I take my Victorian velvet, and with a really light hand, tapping off the excess, I'm just starting to blend on some Victorian velvet, from starting at the bottom and working upwards and lightening my hand as I go. And then I'm now working onto the section above. And again, just working at the bottom of that section and gradually lightening my hand as I work my way up on that section. And there are a few mistakes in this video, and I have kept them in so you see how I salvage my card. So I shall talk you through those just very briefly as I get to them. So this is, again, just Victorian velvet. This is the first time doing this sort of thing on this card. It is a fairly new die to me, so I've had this idea for a while. But this is where I go in with the aged mahogany, and this is going to be in my head. This is going to be my sky. And I just now remove those masks from the side, and I'm really I have stamped a snowy background in Versamark ink on the back of this, and I forgot to use my embossing body, so that was my first error. So I tapped that off, and I did heat set this just to see how it would look, but I still wasn't happy with how it was looking. So I decided to, there's some stitching details, so I decided to cut that section out completely. And while I was thinking about what to do, I decided just to take my Victorian velvet and my aged mahogany ink blending tools and just lightly ink up around that edges, just to give a little bit more definition. So this is where I decided to take another piece of cardstock that I had lying next to me on my desk. It's slightly wider than the opening on that Hillscene cover. So I'm again using my Victorian velvet, and I'm coming in here with some aged mahogany just to darken up the outside edges. So that's how it's looking at the moment, and I'm much happy with that. So I'm going to reapply my post-it masks down the side, and I'm going to start adding some ink, well, not ink splatters, some snow splatters. So I water this down onto an acrylic block with a paintbrush. I just sort of smush it all out and start flicking. I'm really flicking gingerly at first just to see what the consistency is like. I didn't want too many big blobs. Then I decided to bring back that background piece that I just inked and put some snow on there as well. It did start to dry up a little bit, so just add a little bit more water and some more splatters. I was quite heavy-handed with the splatters, but I really liked the effect it gave. So then I leave all that to dry, and while that's drying, I move on to colouring my reindeers. So I've listed all of the colours on the screen that I've used, and I should also list them in the description box below. I'm using some dark brown for the antlers, and I'm just using a round size 2 paintbrush to blend out my colours. I usually use a water brush, but I haven't been getting on with it that well lately, so I decided to have a go at a paintbrush, and I really liked it. So I did decide just to water down my dark brown to just give a bit more darkness around the edge of the reindeer. It was looking a little bit too light for me, so I'll show you this again. So this is Oatmeal, and then I come in with the light beige and a paintbrush just to blend that out. Then I move on to my antlers to let that body part dry. Just using some red for his scarf or his bow tie. This is Victorian velvet. Just some grey to shade the coffee cup. And then once that's had a chance to dry, just come in with a bit of watered down dark brown. Just gives a nice little bit of extra definition on the reindeer and some little pink cheeks. So I leave those aside just to dry off. And I can move on to my sentiment. So I have used a sentiment from Mama Elephant Scripty Christmas. And I've just treated that with my embossing tool or embossing buddy, and then stamping that out with some Versafine Onyx black ink. I was going to use white, but I was worried that it would get lost with all that snowy background, so I went for black, and I coated that with some more clear embossing powder and then heat set that. So I'm just seeing how everything is going to look when it's all together, and I was happy with how it was looking, so I popped some double-sided tape onto the back of that Hillscene cover piece and just secure everything down. It did warp a little, so just trying to keep everything as flat as possible. And then I just take a pair of, these are the Tim Holtz shears, I believe, and just trim off that top excess piece. And here I'm going to just adhere this to an A2 sized card base. I start at the bottom and sort of work my way up just to try and flatten everything out as much as possible. And I have die cut my little reindeers off camera. It did take me quite a while. That's the only thing about die cutting these little agenda stamps. They do take a while to line up, but they're worth it. And I had already decided how I was going to position my reindeers, and I'd taken a photo on my phone, so I was just popping some glue on the back of those and following the picture on my phone that I'd taken. Just trying to get an even balance of which way they are looking and what they're holding. Just to finally finish off the card, I popped some white gel dots onto the reindeer cheeks. And the card is complete, and I was really happy with how it turned out. I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you did, please give it a like. If you like my videos, I'd love it if you would subscribe to my channel, and I hope you have a lovely day. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.